Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whenever you're listening to us and watching us. Thank you for joining me here on the Sports and the World podcast. I'm LaDarius, and as you can see here, I'm not alone. It's someone on the show who I've always wanted to be on, someone who I respect, like friend. I don't know how to. There's so many words to go for, but I'll just here she is, the lady of the hour, Hailee Murphy. How are you?
My gosh, that was such a great intro. Thank you. That was so sweet. I'm great. I'm so happy that you invited me. Thank you so much. Like I said, this is my first podcast in almost 2 years. And so I had to say yes. You were the first and only person I'd want to get jump back into this with. So thank you for having me. And I'm so excited to talk everything that happened today. This is going to be a good episode.
Yeah, it feels like kind of episode where I'm going to be talking, and then sometimes like I always let the guests talk, and I sit back, drink water, and I listen and I soak it in like a sponge.
I've got
But
some rants though.
but like I say, I thank you so much for coming on, and to kind of dive in for those who don't know, your amazing following and all that is that you have an excellent legal. Listen, you're an attorney, correct? A lawyer,
I am.
and so I'm very curious to like how we talked about before we came on here is that I have background in criminal justice, and that's why I guess the connection came in the sports just put the cherry on the top. So I'm just curious about what made you want to get into it, and when did you know you wanted to get into the law, and what at what point did you say this is what I want to do?
So, okay. I've always known I wanted to work in criminal justice. I went to undergrad for criminal justice. I have a bachelor's in criminal justice and political science. I'm going into college. I went to Michigan State, go green. Going into college, I was convinced that I was going to work for the FBI at some point in my life. And then going through my classes, I was like, okay, this is cool and interesting and important, but I don't know if this is necessarily the direction that I should be in. At that time, and even now, the FBI is very vet focused, which is great. But that was not something that I had. So I was kind of nervous about my qualifications. So I tried to look outside the box. What else can I do? How else can I be involved to better the criminal justice system? Because that was always my thing, was that it's not great. It's not great and it needs improvements. So what could I do to change that? So my next step was I wanted to be a prosecutor. So I worked for the Wayne County Prosecutor's Office in Detroit in the sexual assault kit unit. Did a bunch of cold case sexual assault cases, and then went to law school. I also worked for the Michigan Attorney General's office, which was kind of cool. But then went to law school. All of that kind of changed. I did work in homicide prosecution for a little bit here, and then in law school. And then I got a job with an amazing criminal defense attorney, but he also kind of worked with Mr. White, who is quote unquote the godfather of Nashville. And so any building you see in downtown Nashville, Tom White has had a hand in dealing with. And so I learned a lot there. And so I was working in criminal defense and dabbling in civil law. And I was kind of like, oh, I kind of like this, and then I had one case specifically that I worked on in criminal defense that I just didn't feel good about. The outcome was great for my client, or Peter's client, who was the attorney I was working under. But morally, I was sick. I could not believe what I had just done. I couldn't believe what the court allowed. And so I was like, I'm never going back. I can't. So in law school, to take my mind off of things and to kind of de-stress, I turned to sports. So that's really when I got into sports and sports tweeting, and then sports writing, and then sports journalism, and then sports media, and then sports content creation. So it kind of just built from there, but it all started with just a way to relieve stress, and now here we are.
Sports is one of those things that I feel it connects a lot of us more than we think it does. Because I'm on the belief that there's more things that we agree on than we disagree on, and I think sports is something that in some way it connects us. It gets us through times. Like with wrestling. I've been watching wrestling I'll just say X amount of years. If I say people will start guessing the age if I say the number. But I've been a long time because it was kind of like an escape for me, and then sports kind of came that way too. So I absolutely get where sports is just like a gateway, and it connects to kind of what you want to do, but just you're kind of bringing two of your loves, kind of like an amalgamation, and bring it together.
Exactly.
So now that you gave me the lovely transition into sports. Love you for that. Now, being from Michigan. Now, I've always been curious about this. There, I know you're a Tigers fan, and I know you gave up the Go Green earlier,
Always.
and then you're a Cleveland Browns fan, and then I go, well, I would think, me being silly rabbit trips are for kids. I'm thinking, well, I'm thinking Detroit. Yeah. So I'm curious, how did you become a fan of the Cleveland Browns? Because it's I'm very interested in this. For a multitude of reasons. People ask me why I'm a Falcons fan, and then I just tell them mind your business. But
I love that. I'm going to start using that because honestly, that's way better than my answer. A lot of people hate my answer. So I'm writing that down. I love that.
yeah, because somebody asked me, it's like, you're from Florida and you should be a Bucks fan. You should be a Dolphins fan. You're a Jags fan. I'm like, mind your business.
Mind your business. I love that.
I'm like, is there a backstory to it? Sure. I could give you the backstory, sure. But do I want to give you the backstory? No. Yeah, like I know my rights. I don't have to answer. No. I keep walking. Like, no.
I plead the fifth. I plead the fifth.
I'm pleading the fifth. I'll plead the Bill of Rights. I'm not answering your question. But so now let's talk a little bit about the Cleveland Browns entering the season where we know about Deshaun Watson, and then we know about kind of how the last couple of seasons have been. And now entering this season, you're looking at the division where it feels like Pittsburgh is coming in with another quarterback. Likely, maybe Russell Wilson will be starting, maybe over Justin Fields. Maybe there might be a quarterback battle there, if you want to call it that. I don't know what you call it in Pittsburgh.
A shit show. Sorry for my language.
No, listen. You can cuss on the show. I don't edit nothing. And and then you situate. You look at Cincinnati. Joe Burrow, can he stay healthy? And you look at Baltimore. You got Lamar, who maybe seen as the favorites in the division with Lamar and that defense. So I'm kind of curious to get your thoughts on what you think of the team entering this season. Your thoughts on John Watson, the quarterback situation. Your thoughts on how you think this roster is going to do entering the upcoming season.
I'm actually really excited for this season. I think if I compare it to last season, I'm more excited for this season. We have the return of Nick Chubb. No words needed. I cannot wait to see him back on the field. I know the team misses him, the city misses him, the fans miss him. He is an integral of the Cleveland Browns, and I really hope he, during his off time and his recovery time. I know it's kind of a lot of pressure considering the fact, the history of the Browns and how bad they've been, which I will preface by saying, to answer your question from earlier, I'm a fan of the Browns because of Baker Mayfield. He planted the flag at Ohio State. I went to Michigan State, hate Ohio State, hate Michigan. They both can, but when he planted the flag, I was like, I'm about to follow you wherever you go. Led me to the Browns. So I personally feel like I can't really say that I've been a tortured Browns fan because I haven't been. I've only known them from Baker to the present. But given our past, I feel like this season more than ever they have all of the tools necessary to do well. I think obviously our biggest competition is going to be the Ravens. I know that the Steelers have acquired a ton of talent in this offseason. Their draft was pretty good. I'm still not worried. I'm not scared. It's the Steelers, Russell Wilson, Justin Fields. Sure, give him some weapons. Let him fire it off. They've got a good O-line, but not better than the Browns, so I'm just not worried. We've got our great defense. We've got Myles Garrett. I'm not worried about them. Not worried about the Bengals. They've had a steady decline. I'm worried about the Ravens, though I am a Lamar fan. When the Browns can't win, I want Lamar to win. That's, to me, is what we should be focusing on. But in terms of just our team, I don't have any expectations for Deshaun because I learned my lesson last season not to have any expectations for that man. I don't want to say excited. I look forward to seeing what he does. I want him to do well. I don't want to lose. I want the Browns to do well. And that means having a good quarterback. Is he a good quarterback? Yes, he's a good quarterback. Has he shown to be a good quarterback in his history? Yes. Has he shown to be a good quarterback with his history with the Browns? Decent. Okay. But that this season is all telling. I think that this is make or break for him in terms of the Browns and how the locker room respects him, how the fan base respects him. But I do want him to do well. I can't say what I think he's going to do because like I said, I stopped having expectations for that man. So I'm just here for the ride. I am excited though that we have Jameis Winston. So if Deshaun happens to be benched, I wouldn't be that mad. I'm just excited to get Jameis on the field. Other than, the return of Nick Chubb, which is exciting. Up until a couple of days, I totally forgot about Jerry Jeudy signing with the Browns. I saw them post about him the other day, and I was like, you're right. So I'm really excited to see how him and Amari Cooper kind of feed off of each other. But other than that, I feel really confident. We have a pretty solid team. We had a solid team last season, considering all of the injuries that we had, especially to our O-line, and we played well. We kind of adjusted to those deficiencies and capitalized on what we had. So I have good expectations for the team as a whole. But again, it's the Browns. The Browns is the Browns, and so anything can happen. But I am excited for this season, and I think that the connections that were built last season will only grow, and it'll make them a stronger team. And so I think it'll be fun.
I always, one of the things I always say is this: is that, well, I said my last name is Brown. If the folks who are watching can see there. And I said, well, I feel kind of a connection. I don't want to say like I feel part ownership of the team. I'm like, nah,
that's your team. That is your team.
It seems like a lot of work. I'm not gonna lie. We get another Brown in here, that'd be great because I'm more of the guy who works in the back. I'm not. Yeah. I work in the back, and I come out here, yeah, and then I like, but but I got what's intriguing about this team is when I look at is the defense, because I look at the way, like with Myles Garrett, and I just look at it, I just go, like, when I watch this defense as a whole, I'm like, this defense, it's a top 5 defense, and one of the things, in my opinion, is where, like, it's the obvious question mark about Deshaun Watson. It's where, and I tell people, because somebody asked me about it, and I say this: do I have personal opinions about Deshaun Watson? Absolutely, I do. But when we're talking about the football, if the Browns can get the guy that was the Pro Bowl guy the last time he played for the Texans, the last time he played a full season, when he's with Houston, if they can get that guy and get him here, given with adding Jerry Jeudy and then Amari Cooper, then you throw in David Njoku, and you throw in this talent. It's like, if you can kind of get if you can get something, it's like this. It could be where we could kind of put them maybe in a Super Bowl, because the defense is there. If the offense doesn't have to be at the same level as the defense, but I feel like if it's kind of in the same area, and we've seen over, like, listen, look at the Chiefs. Like, the Chiefs got better on defense, and somehow the offense was worse. Yep. So, like, the offense took a decline under Mahomes, but yet the defense played like a top 3 defense all last season, and that's how they kind of got to the Super Bowl. So you just need something to balance it out. And right. If the offense can just kind of meet where the defense is, not like, it doesn't have to be simpatico, but I look at them and go, if Cleveland can get Deshaun, because he's going to be there a while because of all the guaranteed money, so he's going to be there. I like Andrew Berry. I don't know how you sell it. Listen, I don't know. Now you got owners like, they didn't want to pay for it, and this doesn't help, a fully guaranteed contract. So basically, it's Deshaun or bust for the next couple of seasons. So I'm hoping for something on that front. Now, and I think also you're a Titans fan, correct? Or you just like the Titans, or?
I dabble. I will go to any Titans game that I can.
I like how she says, like, I dabble. It's like, I dabble. It's like she goes like above it, like, no, I dabble. Like I don't go.
More than anybody that I support players.
Yeah.
So I follow teams. Will Levis. I think, have my opinions on how season should have gone. Should Tannehill have started? Nope. But I'm not a Titans fan, so what do I know?
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny you say that because like I said, to me, I'm that way in basketball. Because like I used to be like basketball is the only sport where I don't have a favorite team. I used to be a Magic fan, but
Really?
I'll tell this quick story. I want to take away from you, but I'll just tell this quick story.
No, I love it.
So Magic, I'm like, yeah, and then when they had Dwight Howard, so all of a sudden Dwight Howard just acted like he didn't want to be in Orlando. So like I'm like the fan of me is like, okay, if he doesn't want to be here, trade him, and you're gonna get max assets back. You're gonna get a legitimate starter, maybe two, get some draft picks for the future. If he doesn't want to be there, doesn't want to be there. But to me, they had the press conference, and Stan Van Gundy, the coach at the time, was having the press conference, and then Dwight Howard just comes lurking in. Oh, this is my, and I'm like, this is like watching the Titanic right here on. It's like
It's painful.
it's like he doesn't want to be here, and it's like they kind of said, "Oh, Dwight, go out there and make sure everything's okay with you and Stan." They didn't like each other, and that's fine. So trade him. You're gonna get back a guy, get back a starter, get back. Think of the future. Like if you
Right.
trade Dwight, it's not the end of the world. Get back a starter, get back another center. Kind of built, but they let it linger for so long, and he just devalued. He's basically like a car that's off the lot, and basically it goes all terrain, it goes everywhere, and it's a disaster. And then you have the temerity to bring it back to the dealership and says, "I want to trade it in." And you're thinking you're gonna get the Mercedes window. That's how I felt. Like you had the Mercedes when you left. Then, but he all to this day it's still. I'm like I can't do this. And people say, "Oh, it's petty." Like no, listen, call me petty. Like the Magic are they're good now, but I'm like we could have been great for a long period of time. Pack his bags. That's my Dwight Howard. Hope he's not watching or listening. Like I'm 6'4", he's 6'11", so there's the height advantage. So I was at the but so we talked about the Titans. I do want to talk a little baseball because baseball is my absolute first love. And we talk about your Tigers, and I saw you on the social. And by the way, if you're not following, she's going to mention all her amazing stuff and where you follow. But if you're not following her on the Twitter or the X, you were talking about Javi Baez, who I know as a Cubs fan, I know the man,
Yep.
and I'm like, and I saw the post, and I'm like, I get it. We've been trying, like, what do we move in the lineup? No, I tell you, we can go in the lineup. There's a whole bench right there. Like, oh, let's bat him seventh. No. If he's not going to work at the top of your line, he's not going to work. We're not putting him 3, 4, 5. Let's put him at 9. No, just put him on the bench. He's a good dude. Like, but anyway, I don't want to go down that Javi Baez rabbit hole. So
What bothers me about him is that in last season I was a huge Javi apologist. He made me look like a damn fool, and I'll be real honest about that. And so this season I was kind of tiptoeing around it, and he does this thing where he'll have an absolute fire week. His bat will be on fire. He'll be hitting everything, right? And then the next week, 0 for 4 every single game. And it's just like, where's the disconnect? Why is this such a big inconsistency? I mean, the Tigers themselves, we have a lot of inconsistencies, but at least it's a pattern, right? And they're learning and they can fix that, right? But with Javi, I feel like it's very up and down, and it's almost it's a him problem. I don't think it's a Tigers problem. I think it's a Javi problem.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like, it's tiring. It's so tiring, and I try so hard to support that man, but he makes me look like a clown.
Yeah, see, that's me with Desmond Ritter. I was I was like, oh, it's good because here's what I said about Desmond Ritter. I said, let's give him time. Could have went to Party City. I had to wear some clown makeup and just walk down my street. Just because that's how I felt. I want you to succeed because they don't want you to. So a part of me wants you to succeed because I want to prove people wrong. And I said, and then after Ritter just kind of, I'm like, put on the makeup. When they were trading to Arizona, I'm like, I fine.
Bye.
So, right, like it's one of those things. Like I say, especially with a player, and you talked about the Tigers. How are we feeling about your team? AL Central. Everybody. And I talked to Gab about this about her Guardians. I said everybody outside of the White Sox looks pretty good. because being a Cubs fan, I part of me was like, yeah, those White Sox are down, but it's like it. I told Gap, I just feel bad because they're not just like bad, they're bad.
Bad.
They're bad. I'm like, what does that mean? It's think of the like the worst thing that could think of like the worst thing that happened to a sports team. Like I wouldn't wish that up. Like it's bad.
Compare them to pre-Baker Mayfield Browns. Like
Yeah,
they're dry.
yeah, it's like if you're watching Hugh Jackson, hey, we're sorry. We're sorry, not sorry.
I'm not sorry, Hugh Jackson. I do not apologize to you. Absolutely not.
We won just as many games that season. We did. And I sat at home watching you, and I'm like, yeah. Like I said, the difference is you got paid to do it. I was just the guy watching for free. Your contract, but anywho, but how are we feeling about the Tigers? The division looks pretty. Talk about Cleveland, the Royals. This division looks pretty. It looks pretty solid. Your thoughts on the division? Your thoughts on your team? How do you kind of see the season going? Kind of, I know we're just in May. It's early time still. We still got a nice portion of the season to go. But how are you feeling about your team right now?
I'm kind of indifferent. We had a really hot start. We were killing it in the beginning. We kind of slowed down a little bit, but we're back to being, what are we at? I think we have an even record right now, which is great. Actually, I did bet on tonight's game, and I think they're losing like 1-0. Or that was last time. That was the third. I don't even know. But I feel like in the next 2 months, depending on if we can get a winning record in the next 2 months, I'd feel more confident. But I will say that I have a couple teams just in the league in general that I'm kind of, watching. The Guards are absolutely one of those teams. I mean, they're on fire right now. They're averaging over a home run a game, which is pretty great. I know their closers are killing it. I do know that, they don't have Shane Bieber. Bo Naylor has to kind of step up, but I do think that they're kind of killing it. Also kind of worried about the Brewers. I don't know. The Brewers are kind of killing it too. Their bullpen is pretty fire. And I try to compare that with the Tigers. And we're kind of sad in that area. But I think it's the lack of consistency with the Tigers. And it's been that way for a few years, unfortunately. We just can't. I feel like there's a disconnect with players, with offense versus defense. It's like one game we just absolutely kill it on offense. And then the next game there's like 20 errors, it's like we can't catch a break. So it's just been hard to kind of gauge the success of this team because I feel like it's just been so up and down. And quite frankly, like it's been so up and down that I haven't even been betting on them, which is crazy because the Tigers are usually one team that I always bet on just because I feel like I can gauge, at least player prop wise, like I can kind of gauge how these guys are going to play. But this year, unless it's like Riley Green, I got nothing. It's just, throwing the ball up and hoping you catch it. I don't know. But I am trying to hold in my expectations for the rest of the season until like a month or two. I give it like a month and a half. I don't. The sad thing is there's no injuries. It's not like we're fighting anything. On paper, we've got a great team. It's just not connecting, and I don't want to blame AJ Hinch because I always blame that man, and I've blamed that man since I was a kid because he's been around since I was a kid. But it's just like there's something not there, and I don't know who's going to figure out what that missing puzzle piece is, but someone needs to figure out fast because we have everything we need on paper. On paper, our bullpen is great. On paper, we should be batting great. On paper, our outfield shouldn't be making as many errors, or our fielders shouldn't be making as many errors as they are. But something's just not connecting between the paper and the field. And I don't know what it is, but they need to figure that shit out quick because it's getting tiring. It's getting really exhausting.
Like I said, I'll just say from perspective, like I watched it. I speak it from like a Cubs fan perspective where I watch them. And like sometimes I'll dabble on something on them and I think, oh, well, this team, you got this. And then I end up like I do like a 3-4 parlay, and then I'm like I do greater than 3, and then I look at so I check it online because I'm working, so I don't want to be like let me watch the game when I'm working, like even though because I have like 2 laptops, like so I try to figure, but so So you think you're like, your team, and then they go, oh, all of a sudden, all I need is for you to go over a half on a hit. I just need one. I'm not asking for much. Just put the ball somewhere where nobody's at.
Put it in
That's
play. Put it in play. That's all I need.
I don't care where you put it, over the fence, between somebody's legs. I don't care. And then I check and I go 0 for 4. That's fantastic. And then I'm angry the rest of the day. Great.
Yep.
Then I gotta be angry. Then I gotta calm myself down to watch Jeopardy. So now my mind's not it. I'm like, great. I can't watch Jeopardy. But it's understandable being kind of like that fan where it's frustrating. It seems to me when it comes to all of like baseball, I don't know if it's because it's a longer season, but it feels like the team. There's so many ebbs and flows than it is in the NFL or in the NBA, and I think it has to do with the quantity of games, because I see myself as a Cubs fan. I'm like, great, great, we're gonna win. We're winning 5 straight, and then we drop 7 of 10, and then it's like, I don't know. So there's some moment where I don't watch the game, and people are like, it's like, oh no, I don't hate my team. I think I'm thinking, well, it's my fault we're losing, so I'm not gonna watch it. Like I'll follow it on, I'll follow it, somewhere and watch the score. I'm like, oh, if it's good, I'll cut it on. But I feel that way. Like when it comes to the Falcons or the other, I'm like, yeah, I'll watch it.
I absolutely feel like I sometimes jinx my sports teams, especially Michigan State basketball. I do not watch every game. It depends. So I'll watch the first 3 games. And depending on how they do in those first 3 games, that determines whether or not I watch the rest of the season. I have all of their updates and all of the notifications on my phone, so I can, but if I watch the first 2 games and they are shitty, maybe they win, but they still don't play well. Nope. I mean, if it's a big game, if it's like a Michigan game, of course I'll watch it. Or a Purdue game, of course I'll watch it. But yeah, I am very superstitious. Only in terms of watching games. I feel that I'm always like, oh my gosh, they're losing because I'm watching, or oh my gosh, they're losing because I'm not watching. So yeah. I definitely feel that.
Yeah, no, I do that, and to me, and like, because like I said, I'm a Gators fan. I say it real low. I'm like, I don't say it like I used to say it with a lot of bravado and gravitas. I'm like, Gators fan, and it's like, why do you say it loud? No, you heard me. My mic is working. It's fine. It's kind of like watching Gator football. Like there's some moments that I love, and there's just some where I just go, I'm good. And I don't know if it was the Georgia game, and I'm like, I knew we we have a shot. Like no, like look, you can bet that plus all you want to. That's your money. I'm not doing it. That's your money. If it's plus 20, I'm still not doing it. I'm still not. Good. But there were moments in that game where I don't know, with Graham Mertz, and it's like, all right, we're down on their side. We're trying to make a drive, and then all of a sudden, he goes. Billy Napier goes for it. He goes for it on our side of the field, which I just go, look, see what you're trying to do, my guy. We're not playing Vanderbilt, okay? We're playing a team who won a national championship. Like, what are we doing? And then he runs. Then he does a run. I don't know what's. I think it was Wildcat, and I turned the game. I'm like, I'm good, and I don't know what I did the rest of that Saturday, but it wasn't watching Gators.
Watching the Gators.
I'm like, what are your? I'm like, don't ask. It's like, don't get me started. Like we're losing to Kentucky now. It's like I'm done. It's like I used to feel comfortable. Like, oh, we can beat Kentucky, great. Now all of a sudden they're great. Like when they're terrible at basketball, now they're great at football. Great. What a great time for that change to happen. It's like,
right.
You're terrible at football. Yeah. And then don't get me started on Tennessee. That it makes me. I tell people, oh, you want to? No. Like once again, I like Joe. I hope Joe Milton succeeds. I'm glad that guy is in New England. He's nowhere near Neyland Stadium. He's nowhere. I'm good with that. So Joe Milton, if you're watching, hey, great guy. Listen. Peyton went 0-4 against us. You didn't have to do what you did. That's all I'm saying. Like. You can win a national championship. You could have did anything. I'd have rooted for you except when you played my team. But anyway, enough about me. I do want to dive in more about Michigan State because, like I said, I know you're a big Michigan State fan. So I don't know how I'll ask this question. It's a tough question. There's no right or wrong answer. It's not the SATs or anything like that. But if I tell you, and this can go across any sport, it could be basketball, football, whatever. If someone said, Hailee, what's your Mount Rushmore of players from Michigan State? Give me four. Like you can. What would it be? Like it could cross sports. Go for it.
Oh, I'm so ready. Okay.
Go for it.
Kevin Walker,
Okay.
Draymond Green. I caution saying Cassius Winston. I just think he was great for the morale of the team. I mean, he was an incredible college basketball player. So I'd say either him kind of mixed with, I'm going to put Keon Cole on there. I know Florida State's trying to claim that man, but I take full responsibility for him. He played Michigan State football. He played Michigan State basketball. Tom Izzo has literally an NFL rookie. That is incredible. So I'll put Keon Cole on there, but no. I'd say Draymond, K9, Magic Johnson. People always ask me who my favorite NBA player of all time is. Magic Johnson. And then I don't know. I think I'd say in terms of watching and the energy that they brought, I'd say Connor Cook. I know that might be, for my Michigan State fans, that might be a little bit controversial, but fun. He was promising. He made, good. I mean, I have no complaint. Other people might have them, but I don't. So I think I'd say Draymond. Oh, you know what? I'm taking Connor Cook off this list. We're going to put my guy, Jaren Jackson, on there. So we're going to go with Draymond. We're going to go with K9, Magic, and JJ. Perfect. That is the perfect Mount Rushmore for Michigan State.
Listen, like the Connor Cook thing was like, wait a minute now.
Listen, people give him a bad rap, and I understand that. But his rookie years, he was great. I thought he was great. I mean, he brought this energy, this young, spunky. People are gonna hate this, but I kind of compare him to Baker Mayfield, and maybe that's why I like Baker Mayfield so much. They had a very similar personality, where it was they loved football, and they didn't care who liked them and who didn't like them. So I think that's probably why I gravitated towards Baker Mayfield a little bit. But Connor Cook, being on campus and being a student in that era was fun. Going to games and seeing Connor Cook just throw these dimes like that you just didn't expect him to. I mean, there was nothing like it. There was absolutely nothing like it. And then seeing him out at like Harper's being absolutely hammered afterwards. It was great. It was absolutely fun. But he's kind of controversial in the Spartan community, but I'll always be a fan. But everyone knows Draymond Green. I will hold him accountable for things, but I love that man and I will always support him. Jaren Jackson Jr. Everybody knows that I love him as well. So I think that's my Mount Rushmore. It's all basketball mostly, so I think that's kind of interesting. But
yeah, you see, like if people say, "What's your favorite one?" It's gonna probably be football, like basketball. Mm-hmm. Maybe Joakim Noah. Like I don't. Maybe Joakim Noah. But what's interesting about your list is that I will talk about what you bring up, Magic Johnson, and I always run this by people. I'll just be super quick when I run it before we transition. It is that I've always looked at Magic Johnson the same way I've looked at LeBron James. And people are like, here's the thing. I tell people, this is the way I look at it. When we compare LeBron to MJ, I feel that it's not a fair comparison. Not because of talent or anything. It's just we have to look at similarity. And when I look at Magic Johnson's career and I look at LeBron's career, both of them were number one overall picks. Both could play literally all 5 positions on the basketball court. Magic Johnson did back in the day, before any of us were thought of. He did. Yeah. So, and then when I just look at just the way, like how he's built, they don't build dudes like that to move like that. Like Magic, when he came in, there weren't many guys his size moving around the way that he was, and then he can control the ball. That's what made it. And then when you see LeBron, you're like, somebody that size has no business being able to control the ball. Mm-hmm. People are like, it's a cop-out answer. I tell people, no, here's the thing. When you look at their careers, I've always said that's the comparison. Because it's not saying that MJ can't be compared. It's that when we compare people or we compare athletes, let's give them a proper comparison. Because if you compare somebody to the wrong, it gets It's like, oh well, it's like there's not many who you compare them to. And so, to me, I wanted to get that out there. I said anytime, any opportunity that I get to, and when you brought up Magic, I said we should always compare LeBron's career to Magic Johnson's career because both, like I said, the size and even like championships. There was no way, like MJ's 6 championships, nobody was going to do what that Bulls with that. No one was going to win three-peat. No one's going to. But LeBron, the fact that LeBron got to the many, he had got to probably the same amount of finals, almost to how many Tom Brady got to the Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
And what makes it more about Brady, Brady's played in like almost 10% of the Super Bowl. So I'm like, that's Super Bowl's been around almost 60 years, and he's been in almost 10% of them. So that's my 2.5 cents, and we'll be right back after this. No. We'll be right back with our person of the week. Now, but shifting gears, I want to shift back to basketball, specifically WNBA. And like I said, what people don't know is that I've been a huge basketball before, like it's great that women's it's getting the attention that it is now. And I tell people I've been a fan for, well, I'll put 20 years. I'll put it at that kind of number. Anything higher, people say, "How old are you? What's your birth certificate?" It goes back to the mind your business.
Goodness.
Yeah, it goes like, "Sir, what are your contract?" I have to say it, but now, and I tell people when I watch how it's great to see how the game has developed, and I got into it. I tell this story is that I got into it because of Sue Bird, because I tell everybody the stories where, because I'm a UConn fan too. And people say,
I didn't know that.
Because somebody said, "How you a UConn fan?" I said, "Mind your business." Mind your business. I tell people no, and I said it's because I loved watching Sue Bird,
Mm-hmm.
and I said to myself, well, whatever team Sue Bird goes to, whoever drafts her, that's the team I'm going to follow. So she went to Seattle,
Mm-hmm.
and I followed her and the team ever since. And people are like, well, people say you're a UConn fan. I'm like I walk away from the press conference. We're done here. You have 15 minutes. No, actually, you have 14 minutes and 55 seconds. We're done. I don't know. Run a clip, run something, run my greatest hits. I don't know what you have to do. But I say all of that to say this and talk about Caitlin Clark. And I'll put my 1.5 cents. And I know you have a lot of strong opinions on this. So I'm gonna say my little spiel and then let you take the wheel. And one of the things about Caitlin Clark is that we knew she's going to be the number one overall pick. We knew when she hit the W, it's the Caitlin Clark effect. Things were going to change. WNBA, we can have a lot of confidence about Caitlin Clark, but when it comes to like people coming at her, you can tell those who come at her, who watch ball, played ball, and those who didn't. Like, I'm not saying you have to be like all American or anything, but those who've actually watched the game of basketball in general. And like, you can't sit there and watch and say, well, Caitlin Clark is not going to be a star, because she is. She's going to be. Like, ignore the team. Like, the team may not be doing great. Caitlin Clark, they're going to figure out she's going to be fine. And I've always said that the biggest problem is that some of her not all of her fan base, feel like part of her fan base and those who don't know basketball kind of create this image of Caitlin Clark that is misconstrued, and that sometimes she doesn't portray, but it's simply, it feels like people think, oh well, because she's this, then she's that. And my simple response is this: when I look at Caitlin Clark, do I agree with everything being said about her? Absolutely not. Sometimes we try to take things and put it into the wrong context. We try to take people's ascribed statuses and make it something, and it's like, that's not the conversation. Whether it's race, like, that's not the conversation. The bigger conversation is, if we talk about like, is Caitlin Clark going to be good? Or we can have that conversation, because we're not talking about anything beyond her skill set. But sometimes when we talk about some of the comments she gets and some of the things people rooting for her downfall, and to me it does, and I put this on Twitter as well, I say we're doing a multitude of things. We're taking away from this draft class that, to me, one of the best draft classes that we've had in a while. Like, we've had great draft classes that to my memory, it's just like, to me, if you don't put it as your top, it's definitely top 3.
Mm-hmm.
And when we talk about Caitlin Clark, and then you kind of look at Cameron Brink coming out of Stanford, and you look at Camila Cardoso coming out, you look at Angel Reese at LSU, Aaliyah Edwards out of UConn, and you kind of look at, it's like we're taking away, especially when we talk about race, we're taking away that Angel Reese is doing great. Camila Cardoso, she gets healthy, she's going to be good. Aaliyah Edwards is doing fine for the Washington Mystics. I'm curious to get your thoughts because my takeaway is that I understand. I feel like when we have the conference about Caitlin Clark, I feel like we should put it in the proper context. Is where if we talk about the marketing, okay, we can have that conversation. But when we talk about how she's this and she's that, and it's like that's not her. It's some of it. It's the media. Some of it's, like I said, part of her fan base. It's kind of like who there's a part of her fan base who didn't become basketball fans. I could argue till she started probably playing her junior year at Iowa, like before when she really blew up. It's those I'm not talking like the hardcore ones who stuck with her. I'm like the flyby fans, as I like to call them. So I'm curious to get your thoughts on everything with Caitlin Clark, and all of that, and just kind of get your thoughts on all of it.
Yeah, so obviously we've seen how big like women's basketball has grown just in the past couple months, which is fantastic. A little late in my opinion, but better late than never. And obviously she was the number one pick for a reason. How many records did she set? How many men did she beat? I mean, it's not like she was given this platform and this status for no reason. And I today especially really made me mad. Recently, there's just been so many people coming out saying she's only getting the attention she's getting because she's this, because she's that. And those are labels that people are putting on her. Those are not labels that she's giving herself. Granted, some labels we are just born with, and I can respect that. And I can also respect and acknowledge that, with those labels does come privilege. That's always, unfortunately, going to be the case until, bigger changes are made, but that's a conversation for another day. My issue is she would not be getting the recognition she is getting had it not been for the way that she played when she was in college. And there's no ifs, ands, or buts. There's no that's it. That is the end of the sentence. That is it. In other situations with other athletes, sure, you can make the argument that they're getting the things that they're getting because of the way that they look, the way that they interact with people. Sure, absolutely. But with Caitlin, I feel like the attention has been so directed at Caitlin Clark. And granted, I don't want to say underperformed because I don't feel that she underperformed, but people feel that she's been underperforming. I mean, look at the teams that she's played against, though, the two best defensive teams in the WNBA. Okay, so if you want to ask me, I think the WNBA set her up for failure these first couple of weeks, but that's neither here nor there. We would not be talking about that had she not underperformed, quote unquote, in the eyes of other people. But when you compare the things that she's gotten and the attention she's gotten to other players, I mean, sure, she's gotten a little bit more attention. That's because she set records and she was the number one overall pick. But I also see Angel Reese out here doing her thing. She's been hanging out with Megan Thee Stallion. She's been hanging out with Glorilla. Like, she's been killing it. She went to the Met Gala. Angel Reese is, for those who don't know, I am a huge Angel Reese fan. For me, my number one overall pick is Angel Reese. So I will talk her up to anybody. When you compare the opportunities, Angel Reese might have more. and it's just it's tiring because I feel like, and what's surprising is the people starting this conversation are women. And that, I think, is what is the saddest part about this. And I understand where they're coming from. I absolutely understand where they're coming from. Specifically, Black women never get the recognition that they deserve. I mean, blanket statement, and I will stand by that. They never do. But in this context, it's not something that we can say because it's just not true. I know that, I don't even know what her name was, Sunny something, but that host on The View, I'll preface by saying everybody has their own opinion. Everybody's entitled to their own opinion. But you could tell that she had never watched, one, basketball in her entire life, two, women's basketball in her entire life. It was shocking. And she she kind of bolstered her argument by using Brittany Griner and Brittany Griner's paycheck. And to me, she was like, well, Brittany Griner had to go play in Russia. Why'd she have to go play in Russia? They all play in Europe because the WNBA in general does not pay their athletes, because that's just how it is right now. It's not a Brittany Griner issue. I mean, do I wish she never played in Russia so that shit never happened to her? Absolutely. But that's just what it is. And I just feel like people are making comments about the WNBA and Caitlin Clark specifically without being fully informed. I mean, the woman set the all-time record for men's and women's points. Like, you can't dispute numbers. You cannot dispute numbers. And I also saw that View host made a comment about the income that the players are making. That has been a fight that WNBA players, not even WNBA players specifically, just all women athletes have been fighting with the women's U.S. soccer team. That was a huge thing a couple years. Now it's WNBA. They don't get paid what they should be getting paid, and they don't paid even. And people want to say, well, men's sports bring in more money. That's very true. Even when you compare the amount that male athletes get paid versus the amount that male sports bring, you compare that to how much women athletes are getting paid versus how much they bring in, literally the difference is astronomical. It is not equal. It is not equal at all. And that's because they're women. There's no other argument for that. And I understand where people are coming from, trying to bring in, well, Caitlin's this, Caitlin's that. That's why she's getting all this attention. I understand that. And I think that argument is valid when applicable, but you are fighting the wrong people and you are not fighting the right fight. The right fight is, one, the media and the WNBA. That's it. It has nothing to do with Caitlin Clark. It has nothing to do with who she is, what she looks like, who she likes. It has nothing to do with that. It all has to do with our society and the league. End of story. She has earned her brand deals. She has earned, her place in the NBA, the WNBA, and so has the entire rest of that rookie class. And I think by continuing this conversation, you are doing a disservice to people like Camilla, to people like Angel, who have worked their asses off and who have provided so much personality to the league and who have also been an integral part in growing women's sports. You are completely overshadowing them by some nonsense. Again, those arguments are important when applicable, but they're not applicable here. In terms of Caitlin Clark, she's been given what she's been given because she deserved it. She absolutely deserved it. And you know that I have no problem calling people out for their privilege. I get it. But this is just not that case. And I feel bad because, Caitlin Clark's out here doing just playing basketball. So is Angel Reese. And it's a very different narrative for the both of them when they're both doing the same exact thing. And I feel like, again, it's doing a disservice to women's sports in general by taking away Caitlin Clark's accomplishments, her skills, her character, all because of something you think. And it's usually people's opinions who don't watch the sport. So they don't know. So they're speaking uneducated. And it's sad. It's disheartening. I feel like women, especially women athletes, have worked so hard to get even just a sliver of recognition in the sports world. And then you add in, women who work in sports, who do social media, who coach, who, do whatever. That in itself is also a battle. And with this 2024 rookie class, like it's kind of opened the door of, oh, you know what, women kind of can ball too. And the same people who are advocating, quote unquote, for more female recognition or women recognition are turning out to be the same people kind of diminishing that. And it's really sad. It's heartbreaking. And I feel for Caitlin Clark, and I feel for the rest of the rookie class who are also working their asses off and deserve the same recognition, but they're not getting that because they're not being controversial. Caitlin Clark is not being controversial, but she's the number one pick, and so people want something to talk about. And unfortunately, she is falling victim to that, and it sucks. It really, really sucks.
Yeah. First of all, bravo. And secondly, I'll say this before we put a button on it. I think when we have conversations like the one we're having now. It's important to always put it in the right context. And when, like I say, I know Sunny hosts the co-host of You. I read what she said, and I was kind of thrown aback because I respect her, journal. I get that, but we have to have the right conversation directed at the right people because Caitlin Clark is being asked to essentially be the league's next big star, and it's what she did at Iowa, breaking records. We can like, oh, is she the greatest? We can have those conversations, but the conversation that I tell people is not to have is about we're talking about she's this, she's that. It's not fair to Caitlin Clark. It's not fair to any of the women in this draft class, and it's not fair to the league because I understand. Like I said, I've been watching this point, and I know how great she's going to be. But when we have these, I'm like this season we're now having these superstars. Now they're having charter flights. Before that, they were writing commercial, and now and like people, we have to talk about the growth of the league. The league added a new, we've got two new teams come into the league soon, and from Golden State and Toronto. We have to continue to talk about expanding the league. How can we make the league better? How can we get more players in our league? Because here's the reality: there's 30 NBA teams, and now we're pushing toward the league's been around. WNBA's been around almost 30 years, and we're talking about getting their 16th team, like less, almost half. And a lot of great players are out, are not able to play because not because they're terrible. There's only so many roster spots to have. Caitlin Clark is just she's talented enough, and her talent is going to help the league progress and be great. The reality is, and to me, the conversation to have is how do we help make the league better? Because this class here, this 2024 class, it could go down as one of the greatest, like all time talent. And the conversation we're having is about Caitlin Clark is this and Caitlin Clark. If you're talented, I don't care what you are, who you are. You're going to be. There's going to be expectations. Caitlin Clark's going to be fine. Let's direct these conversations about how do we grow the league, how to make it better. Let's talk to the commissioner. Let's talk to the media, how we cover. Look how Caitlin Clark was covered by that one guy from Indianapolis, like with the question. So, I think we lost. I think we lost her. Well, I think we lost her. I was just a talking. I think we lost Hailee. I think. Oh, is she here?
I don't know what is happening. Can you hear me? I can't
Yes.
hear you, and I think it's my computer. Let
Yeah.
me reload. Hold on.
Okay, no problem. And so before she comes back, I'll say this before she comes back, we'll put a button on the show. The simple fact of the matter is this: we should be celebrating. We should be celebrating the talent. We're back in business.
We're back.
Yeah. I was talking. I was doing a little Broadway thing. You missed it. It was great. But what I will say, like I said, what I say is this, and like I said when we went when on and off, I was saying is that we have to have conversations directed at the right people.
Mhm.
That's how change happens. And someone who, like I said, we talked about like your criminal. I feel we have to talk to the right people because if we want real change, we have to talk to people who are willing to want the change and the people who have the power to make the change. Because at the end of the day, Caitlin Clark is just a basketball player. In the grand scheme of all of this, she's a basketball player. And we're talking about the league now just having charter flights. We're making progress, endorsements, and we're talking, and hopefully it will continue to grow with two new teams. Caitlin Clark is going to be fine. This draft class is going to be fine. Let's talk about them. We talked about Angel Reese. We talked about how you're seeing her. She's visible. You're seeing her everywhere. Like you said, at the Met Gala and hanging out with the who's who. Caitlin, everything's going to be fine.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's not fair to put it and like I say, and I'll say this: people who choose to go after Caitlin Clark either don't know ball or they don't understand. Like some of her fan base thinks that, oh, well, Caitlin Clark, no. And I tell people who some of the part of Caitlin Clark's fan base, when you go, like, I think it made her teammate Aaliyah Boston, she had to turn off her social media.
Yep.
Because you got a bunch of fans who, that's how you tell they never watch ball. Aaliyah Boston was the rookie of the year last season. And you're telling me that, oh, Aaliyah Boston's terrible? Listen, all the greats have a bad game. Like, it wasn't Aaliyah's fault they lost that game. And I tell people, you could have fooled me if it was the media. You could have, or better, her fans. Excuse me. Her fans were like, well, that's how I know. And then all of a sudden, then it's like, well, that's the pressure being Caitlin. No. We're not doing that. It's not the pressure being Caitlin Clark's teammate because, see, when Aaliyah Boston would have bad games last season, I don't recall her having to shut down her media, her social media. It's because you can be two types of criticism. You can be constructive or deconstructive. And people chose to be deconstructive.
Mm-hmm.
So I tell people this before I put a button on it. Understand context. When you don't go after Caitlin Clark. Caitlin Clark's not the problem. If you have a problem with how this is happening and that's happening, it's not Caitlin Clark's fault. We don't, like I said, it goes back to sociological concept of a scribe status. That's your race. That's your gender. Those are things you can't control.
Right.
Like you can. I don't care. That's what you can't control that. That's what you can control your achieve status of what you can accomplish in your life, but you can't control your ascribe status. That's my old man rocking chair rant of the day, sponsored by someone. But before we go, you have any last thoughts, Haley, before we close out?
No, other than just be nice to people, be kind. That's all I've got to say. I feel like lately, just in every little niche in this world, there's just been so much negativity, and I feel like we don't need that as a human race, as a population, as friends, as cohibitors. Like, we don't need that. Just be nice to people and remember that everybody's going through something. So use nice words and just spread love.
I couldn't have said it better myself. And like I said, before we go, once again, Haley, I know we kept you on. We've been on for an hour talking.
Have we really?
Yeah. I know. That's why I said, wow. I said, my goal is try to keep you under, but I'm like, and like I said, we talked about this before. It's like when we have conversations, sometimes it just goes. And,
Time, yeah.
but like I say, I appreciate you, Haley, so much coming on. Because like I say, it's I hope you're not a stranger to the podcast.
Ask me on whenever, and I will make time.
Whatever. And before we head out of here, let all these amazing people who are listening and watching, where they can find you, where you express yourself, and you just do the whole thing.
You can find me on any social media platform at the Hailee with 2 E's Murphy, or you can search that blonde from Nashville. I'm sure you can find me on Google. Google loves me in that sense, which is kind of scary. But yeah, at the Hailee Murphy, and come talk to us. We have some pretty interesting conversations, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I think those are that's fair to say. Either sometimes I want to chime in, but I'm like, no, I sit back and I'm intrigued. And
it could get kind of entertaining for sure.
It's like what was the funniest? I'll say before we definitely go, because I want to take. It's like I think you were talking. Was it to Dan Dakich or somebody?
Not that man. That old man. I put him in a grave. My gosh.
It's like when I watch this, I'm like, if I'm that guy, so whatever you thought was left was gone.
He thought he had me. He thought he had me. If y'all haven't seen those tweets, please go look up. Just search like the Hailee Murphy and Dan Dakich, and you'll see those. The man he ran with his tail between his legs. That's for sure. Rightfully so.
I mean, if it was a boxing match, it was, and you paid to see a 12-round fight, well, you're gonna be disappointed. It was over pretty quickly. If you left your seat or you went and you got some popcorn, and think of it this way: It's like your favorite musician, like, oh, they're gonna be on for an hour and it's 15 minutes. We're going to play 3 songs for you. Like, what? And that's what happened. So if you came for the full set, you went for the whole concert. You're like, I'm getting this whole Taylor Swift. I'm getting the Carry On the Wood. I'm getting for an hour. It's 15 minutes. It's like all you're getting is you're getting 1989. You're getting Midnights, and you're getting some of those. Well, what about her other stuff? You're not getting that. Sorry. What
Yeah,
about Teardrops on My Guitar? Nope, you're not getting that tonight.
no debut, no debut. Yeah, it was like a 3 tweet argument and done, and he was done. I'm pretty sure I'm blocked.
We, it was so good. It was so good. But anywho, Hailee, thank you so much for coming on. I
Thank you.
appreciate you. And folks, you can like and listen to and subscribe to this episode and every episode of the Sports and the World podcast. Apple, Spotify. It's gonna be on YouTube. You get to see this face, but that one is much. Yeah, it's fine. It's a beard. Mind your business. And until you hear and see me again, I'm LaDarius. Be real, be you, be blessed, and be safe from all of us here from the Sports and the World podcast.